Danny Phantom versus Jake Long is an episode I feel many people, including myself, had mixed opinions on. On one hand, this episode does some amazing things that I believe we have yet to see from Death Battle, such as using custom sprites. But on the other, I feel like many people believe this isn't one of the highlights of this season. It was fun to see them duel, but was it really a highlight? Was it as good as some other episodes that happened this season? The animation, I would argue no. And I'd like to explain why. So welcome to my review of Danny Phantom versus Jake Long. There are a few things I should mention before starting the review. 1. I did not watch this episode with a friend as of yet, so I have no second opinion to go off of. I'll probably watch this with someone soon, but for now, it stands as my opinion alone. 2. This is my opinion and mine alone. Please leave your thoughts in the comments if you wish. 3. I'm not trying to hurt anyone working at Death Battle with this video. This is just my own critique of the episode. 4. Wait till the ends for a small re-review of She-Ra vs. Wonder Woman. What? There are 3 notable cons about this episode that we'll each go over individually. Number 1 is why the fight starts. Number 2, how the fight ends. And number 3, the battle and animation itself. To start off, the reason the fight started in the first place was just a little bit stupid. Just stupid. Basically, Danny's returning something to the museum, in the Egyptian museum, and like he sees, there, that's back where it belongs. And then Jake Long just comes out and is like, yo, you trying to steal something else? And like, what else is he stealing? You know, there's a lot going into it. And then he just dragging this up, you know, like, there's really nothing, there's like no reason for him to. He just sees this guy here. What if he's working for them? Who knows? Like, you know, he just kind of acts out of instinct. Maybe that is his character, but still, it seems as like a stupid way to start off a great fight. My second complaint is with the battle animation. Don't get me wrong, I really like the animation, but I have a specific part about the animation I want to complain about. So I'll just wrap around back to that. This part of the animation in the museum feels slow in the actual episode. When you just watch it with no sound, I'm sure it looks great, but still, this part of the animation feels very slow and monotonous. They could have cut a few things out, and it could have just stayed the same, you know? This part of the fight just was boring. It was the worst part of the episode, and I don't usually say that about the fight. It's usually the post or pre-analysis that has that, even though they're both really good. But this part of the museum was the part they also showed off in the preview, and that's not very good. You know, that's not good promotion. It didn't look like a good episode, so it could have turned a lot of people off, and that's not very good. I'm sure this part of the episode has its fans, but I did not enjoy it. And now, for my biggest complaint, the final blow. I believe the build-up for the final blow far exceeds what actually occurred. I mean, using the ghostly whale, that could have been the finishing move, especially because that's one of Danny's, if not Danny's, most powerful ability. And then they start, you know, duplicating themselves, which is strange since this is stuff they've usually only used once, but they had a musical theater reference, so who cares? Then, this fight scene against the many Dannys and the many Jakes, it's, I think, one of the greatest animations of Season 7 so far. It's really good, and especially this scene where Jake's duplicates throw the Dannys onto the building, the tornado starts, and then they start shooting fire, creating one humongous explosion. That could have been a good death. But Danny, spoiler alert, Danny wins, and he takes control of Jake. And he crashes him into some buildings, which is cool, Then he goes out for Jake, and then he blasts him. This is just an incineration death, and it's cool, but we've had one this season, and it was more of a self-destruct. Then he canisters Jake, and the day is saved. I feel like they could have done more of anything. Danny does win, I agree with him. But the ghost canister and the beam that Danny sends out, I don't know how I feel about that being the final blow. It's not something I'm a big fan of. Also, I noticed that the city background seemed the same as Miles vs. Static. Yeah, that's about it on that complaint. Boomstick make fart joke. Ha 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 ha. Okay, starting off with my favorite part of the entire episode. The music track, American Phantom. That's like the only death battle track I listen to on a daily basis. It's one of my favorites, and I love it. It's amazing. Go listen to it. Brandon Yates is one of the greatest composers of all time. Get out of the way, Mozart. Debate me. Other than the music, there were a lot of other great elements of the fight, such as the choreography of the fight, how they used the characters' abilities and arsenal very well. I really enjoyed that part. I also really like one thing about the museum theme, and that's that Jake has a weakness to museums and ancient objects in general, mostly Egyptian, which is where they fought, in the Egyptian section of the museum. So I thought it was cool once they got out of the museum, and I was like, oh my gosh, so Jake got more powerful because he's out of the museum. And I really thought that was one cool thing to add to this conversation. I'm not sure if you guys care, but Another thing I really like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm more than sure they made custom sprites for this episode. Of course, I heard it from a friend, and I didn't actually hear it from the Death Battle cast itself, but I couldn't find these sprites anywhere up to a few months ago. So I was wondering how they got them. And then my friend told me what he knew, and I'm pretty sure they used custom sprites, which is really cool, and I'm pretty sure that's the first time in the show's history that they have. So, good on them doing that. I really enjoy that aspect and hope they do more with it. The pre-analysis also has some really good jokes, mainly on Danny's side, because that was the first time we saw, Boomstick sing the theme song, and then we saw him do it again, and it was kind of, we thought it would happen, but, we still thought, good jokes in the pre-analysis, though. And also some good jokes and lines in the animation itself. Sure, some of them were cheesy, but most of them, I thought, really fit the characters fairly well. I also enjoyed the voice acting for both Danny and Jake, and, I know these characters' voices aren't probably what they were in the animation, and I'm sure they're much different, but this is how I'm always going to hear Danny and Jake Long from now on, so just be ready for that. And also, as I stated, I don't like the museum theme, but once they get out of the museum, holy crap, I love the episode. It just looks so much better, and I think it plays so much better out of the museum. So, thank you for delivering to us a bad scene and a good scene so that I can cross-analyze them. Thank you, Death Battle. There's a badly worded and barely written review of Danny Phantom versus Jake Long. Overall, I like this episode better than She-Ra vs. Wonder Woman. It doesn't have better animation, but I think it has better jokes and just better music as well. I think American Phantom is probably my favorite death battle track, way over Princesses of Power. And I believe the way they use the arsenal and powers of Danny and Jake is used way better. The pre-analysis, I remember way more jokes. And the animation, oh my gosh. The animation isn't as good, but holy crap, is it still good. There's just a lot to say about this episode, and I'm sure if I had scripted this way better, this would have been a much better review. But I didn't, so you hear me fumbling over my words half the time. Thank you, all of you, for listening to my review of Danny Phantom versus Jake Long. Overall, I give this episode a 7 out of 10. Yeah, She-Ra vs. Wonder Woman is now a 7 out of 10 for me. What happened to 9 out of 10? Well, I'm glad you asked, random citizen. In my original review of She-Ra vs. Wonder Woman, I gave the episode a 9 out of 10, which, for me, is an amazing score that most episodes never achieve. Then I realized that my top 32 is all are in 8 out of 10, and She-Ra vs. Wonder Woman is nowhere near my top 32 favorite episodes. So that had to be changed. And after carefully selecting where it would go, I chose that a good score for this episode overall is 7 out of 10. I see the main complaint with this episode is that there were better matchups and this episode was no longer highly requested. And people really didn't want to see Wonder Woman for a while, especially since she's already had 2 matchups. And I stand by those. Thank you all for watching this review of Danny Phantom versus Jake Long, and a small